Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made the trip. You got DanK here, your host, and we have Eric, our social commentator,
Yeah.
and advocate for medical marijuana. So we want to have some news stories to talk about. We also have some personal experiences. I went to Hempstock Saturday. It's like Eric went to the Hempfest weekend before last, so I went to Hempstock last week, and so it's great to cover these events. And Hempstock was that's the third year that they're in the location Kelly Point Park. The organizer was telling me that next year they might get into. They're thinking they're might be able to get into the waterfront park. Are you familiar with waterfront park?
Down in Portland, yeah.
Yeah,
Portland,
that's a nice. That's going to be an incredible spot if you can get into there. So. Anyway, it was good. Had a lot of vendors up there. A trade show. I mean, this is a cannabis trade show. I tell you, there are products up there I never even heard of before. I never seen before, you know. And so I made some good contacts and made new friends and ran a lot of old ones. So the story we wanted to lead off with tonight is about our. I would say our esteemed, but he's not very esteemed, I don't think. Anyway, Attorney General Eric Holder, in a letter saying that they were going to honor, the feds were going to honor the state's marijuana laws, Colorado and Washington legalization laws.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is from the Huffington Post, and this is talking about the police groups fiercely protest Eric Holder's marijuana policy announcement. Organizations that include sheriffs, narcotics officers, and big city police chiefs slammed Eric Holder in a joint letter Friday expressing extreme disappointment at his announcement that the Department of Justice would allow Colorado and Washington to implement state laws that legalize recreational marijuana for adults. And they go on and on about it. And some of the interesting comments they had is this is the highlight to me. The letter warns that marijuana can cause suicidal thoughts, impairs driving, and is a gateway drug. The missive does not, however, address the failure of law enforcement generally to reduce drug use, even while tripling the number of people behind bars. Instead, the police warn that liberalizing pot laws will lead to an increase in crime.
You know, one of the things that sticks out to me is as a veteran, a lot of people understand that a lot of law enforcement officers are veterans as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that myself and a lot of other veterans served for is a lot of us believed in the Constitution and the right to express your opinions and to express and to exercise all of your rights. What Eric Holder has done, essentially, what the federal government has done, is upheld the 10th Amendment. And for those of you who aren't quite aware, the 10th Amendment is the amendment that outlines states' rights. And Washington and Colorado, by majority vote, have legalized marijuana in their states. It is the federal government's duty, it is their job to make sure that the laws that got passed by the states therefore get enforced. And to see law enforcement officers saying, please do not enforce the 10th Amendment, please do not let these states exercise their 10th Amendment right. As a veteran, I'm offended. I mean, just any veteran who's ever served should be offended by anybody who's trying to prevent anyone from exercising any of their rights. You hear a lot of people, especially veterans, they're always really hot about the Second Amendment. I want my gun rights, and I want this and that. You know, there's a lot more than one or two amendments. I think it would be very beneficial for people to pick up a copy of their Constitution and their Bill of Rights and read them, and understand that every one of them is to be exercised and protected equally. There isn't one more important than the other. And this also, to me, also points at just the culture of law enforcement today in our society. The reason why they're so upset that they can't no longer enforce marijuana laws is entirely the bulk of their budgets. If you watch any of these TV shows about weed wars, or there was one called Pot Cops, they don't have helicopters and they don't have SWAT gear for meth busts and they surely don't have them for child pornography and for rape investigations. This is strictly for marijuana. All their toys and all of their fun stuff is for marijuana. And now that we have gone on in the video game era, now a lot of these cops are, well, they're part of the video game generation, and they get to act out their video game fantasies and rappel from helicopters and kick down doors. And by eliminating marijuana, you've eliminated their fun. And I'm sorry, but their job isn't supposed to be fun. They're not supposed to go around and having a cowboy of a time kicking down doors and stepping on people's rights. Law enforcement, it is their job to enforce the laws. And in Colorado and Washington, the law is marijuana is legal for adults. So in Colorado and Washington specifically, the cops just need to do their job. And their job is to enforce the laws that are on the books. And for the rest of them, you might as well get used to it, because it's going to be coming to every other state. It won't be long before all 50 states are going to be legalized. They're all, pretty much all are becoming medical marijuana states. I think we're up to 22 now, with a lot more with it coming in the future. So
yeah, the walls are coming down.
They are, and they're coming down, and it's telling who's fighting those walls. And,
oh yeah, exactly. In fact, another thing they mentioned here, it says the decision will undoubtedly have grave unintended consequences, including a reversal of the declining crime rates that we as law enforcement practitioners have spent more than a decade maintaining, the officers write. Well, there's 2 points I need to bring up about that. One is, when I first became an activist, I contacted a normal member up in Alaska, and we were talking about crime and pot being illegal, and he told me that Alaska has a unique situation in the fact that pot was legal, and then it was illegal, and then it was legal again. So they went and looked at the crime statistics during that period, and they said that when pot was decriminalized, crime went down, and then when it was recriminalized, crime went back up again. So it's just the opposite of what they're saying. And at the same time, another instance that I would point out is LA County. They said, oh, if we open dispensaries, pot crime's going to go up. They opened the dispensaries, actually crime went down, and then they shut dispensaries down, and then the crime went back up again. So there's 2 cases right there that contradict what Piggy Wiggy says.
Well, and another one of the arguments that doesn't hold any water is that use is going to go up, and that argument's never held any water. I mean, just to think that because a substance is legal, everybody will use it. Well, there's plenty of people who don't drink alcohol, who don't use tobacco. And one of the arguments that I would use against that is you should look at what's been going on in Portugal. In Portugal, they decriminalized marijuana, and they actually found that the use amongst young people dropped. And one of the reasons, and this is obviously it's to me one of the most obvious, is one of the things that kids do what they do is for rebellion reasons. If something's not taboo and it's not against the law, it ain't cool to rebel for it. I mean, let's be honest, kids smoke, they drink, they stay out late because it's cool and they're not supposed to do it. And as soon as you say, well, that's no big deal, we all do it, it's no longer fun. It's not something, and that's exactly what they don't want you to understand. They want to keep the fear going that, oh, as soon as we do this, all of our kids are going to be smoking dope and robbing people and committing crime. And it's funny when they have to use the same tired excuses and poor examples, none of which are founded in any real data or any real crime statistics. But check that out. Right. See what's going on in Portugal. There's a bunch of statistics on. They've showed that the young people, the under 18, have the use has dropped. It's just the way it goes. I mean, it's how it's always been.
Yeah, exactly. What in line with what you're saying is when I was in high school, my dad had put a 10 o'clock curfew on me. I had a heck of a time getting in by 10 o'clock constantly, and he finally gave up on me on enforcing it because I just wasn't living up to it. After he gave up on enforcing it, I think I was in before 10, well, before 9 after that. It's just
because you find a reason to stay out late because now you have to make a point not to. And once you realize there's no point, you realize you have nothing more to do. I'm just going to go and
yeah, exactly. So. Anyway, we wanted to talk another quick story here, and this is interesting. This is out of Nevada, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission relaxes marijuana regulations. And Eric's read up on this, and tell us a bit about that, Eric.
Yeah, this is really interesting because if you, for all of you who are familiar with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they're mostly those go hand in hand with boxing and mixed martial arts, MMA, the UFC. One of the reasons why this is a huge step is because if you're a boxer or a UFC MMA fighter and you get busted for marijuana, you get suspended and you get fined almost as if you got suspended for steroids. And one of the things that the Nevada State Athletic Commission does, as well as any state athletic commission, is they do drug testing, and it's for performance-enhancing drugs. There could not be a single person who could consider themselves intelligent who would argue that marijuana is a performance-enhancing drug. Now, there are people like myself, and there are artists who say it enhances their creativity, but it is not going to help you hit 400-foot home runs, and it's not going to help you run a 4.340. And so what this does is a lot of people, and this is through time, people have always used marijuana or cannabis as a relaxant to help muscles come down from an exercise. I use it after a lot of big hikes that I do. And so it's very obvious that people would use this as a remedy, as opposed to narcotic pain pills and other things that as a fighter are going to jeopardize and hinder your performance. So this is a huge step in the right direction. It's saying that, they don't believe that cannabis is a dangerous drug that warrants a fighter or a participant in a sport to be fined or suspended. So it's a good thing. And
coming from Nevada, the state that you could get hard time for a joint.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Wow, that's very cool. Okay, we're going to wrap up this segment, and we'll be back and with our next guest commentator.
Do you suffer from fear of losing your election? Are you terrified that voters will discover you've done nothing to improve their lives? Maybe it's time you talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex. In clinical trials, Incarcerex has been shown effective at reducing election-related anxieties by making voters think you're doing something about the drug problem. It's simplistic and fast-acting. If your problems continue or get worse, you can always double or triple your dose of Incarcerex. Whether it's addiction, therapeutic use, or just casual use, there's an Incarcerex plan for every American. Best of all, taxpayers, not you, will foot the bill. So talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex today. Common side effects include loss of civil liberties, police corruption, racial injustice, increased terrorism, spread of HIV and AIDS, and violent crime. Bloated prisons are also a common side effect. Stop taking Incarcerex if bloating lasts longer than 20 years. If you're trying to balance the budget, keep families together, or protect human rights, Incarcerex may not be right for you. Do not mix Incarcerex with the Constitution or common sense. So start taking Incarcerex and keep pretending you're doing something about the drug problem.
Welcome back to the second segment of Eugene Cannabis TV. You got DanK, your host, and we have Joseph over here next to me, and our another commentator and one of our regulars. We appreciate you coming in.
Anytime.
And tonight we were going to discuss a couple things came up in the Register Guard. The first is the editorial titled "A Sound Marijuana Law." Now this was published. Basically, what they're saying is that they're basically saying that the activists, us, are going to have a legalization initiative on the ballot, so the legislature needs to get with the program and draw up the language of the law themselves so that it'll be done right. And I remind people, okay, the legislature is going to do it right, like they did the speed limit law here about 4 or 6 years ago. They had to completely go back and redo it because they screwed it up so badly. I could go on, and but anyway. And you had some comments on this too?
Oh, I just was noticing that they want to take the wording away from the people that are doing it and that are passionate about what they're doing. The people that are passionate about the cannabis program here in the state have done it for a reason. They've done it to help people and get the best possible help for the individuals of this state, and to have the legislature come in and want to do it for them is kind of counterproductive. Essentially, they should just be working essentially together, or focusing on how much progress that everybody's made and how much of a positive progress they've made.
Well, the subtitle here says it all. Legislature should get ahead of initiative efforts. Get ahead?
Yeah, right.
No, we maybe work together, but it's not in case of getting ahead. But anyway, we do have 2 initiatives that are that are out now. In fact, I forgot to mention that earlier. But Measure 21 and 22. That's the
21
measure
and
numbers.
22?
Yep, and they were at Hempstock. I signed both of them.
Nice.
Forgot to bring any blank ones back, but I'll be getting them electronically. And yes, we are ready to gather signatures. The volunteer sheets are ready to go. The paid petition sheets aren't ready quite yet, but the volunteers are. So
Nice, yeah. Get out there and get those signatures.
yes, and we have until July of 2014, so we actually have less than a year, and we've already lost most of this summer, or all this summer, and we don't have much of next summer. So we're going to end up gathering most of the signatures through the dead of winter, which is which is not good. But that's what we got, and that's what
And
it is.
you can go online and sign them, right?
I think so. I don't know if that's set up yet, but I think so. Eventually, I think at some point, yes, you
Definitely
will be able to go
let
online.
everybody know when that happens.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, we need to get behind this big time. They will be paying for people to gather signature petitions. You'll have
That's
to
actually a pretty good thing. A friend of mine did it, and he really enjoyed it. You know, he got to meet everybody, get all sorts of sides from the the story. You get a few extreme people on one end, and then, definitely on the other.
It's true, and I've always said it's always amazed me where support comes from. You never know. You just never know, and I've just been shocked at where it comes from. And so, yeah, I do, and it's very. It's harder work than it looks like,
Definitely.
but it's also like Joseph said, it's also very rewarding because of the people you talk to. Years ago, with Saturday Market, we used to have a guy that was a retired doctor out of Bend. He was 85 years old, and he said that he used to prescribe marijuana before it was made illegal.
Nice.
Yeah, and he was all supportive of it.
Common sense,
Yeah,
goes a long way.
And the funny thing too was that he, like I said, he lived in Bend, and he said it just happened that he lived next to a DEA cop, and he said that guy's a real jerk. But anyway, so that's what the editorial basically is saying is that the legislature needs to create the law before us activists muck it up. So I don't really agree with that, but it's funny that the legislature is even being suggested that they look at it because they never cared about it in the past. Well, last election we lost with 47%. That's damn close.
That is really close.
And so it's happening this time. When it goes up this time, it will happen.
Yeah, the people of this state are starting to stand up, get more comfortable, and the cannabis conversation is starting to get into the homes that it really needs to. Yeah,
exactly. And then we have our friend Jim Gregg had a letter to the editor published titled, "Finally, Recognition of Cannabis's Medicinal Value." Recently, with a little fanfare, Governor John Kitzhafer signed House Bill 3460 into law, creating a regulated supply system for medical marijuana. Finally, patients will have legal and safe businesses from which to procure their medicine. The Oregon Health Authority will establish the regulatory framework for a working system. Marijuana dispensaries will operate only in commercially zoned areas and will be at least 1,000 yards from schools. Were it not for the tireless efforts of State Senator Floyd Rosensky and State Representative Peter Buckley shepherding the bill through both chambers of the legislature, this bill would never have gotten to our governor's desk. In the House, the bill was passed almost entirely along party lines, with no Republicans voting for it and 2 Democrats joining the Republicans. In the Senate, 4 Republicans crossed the aisle to vote yes, and 2 Democrats voted no. Although Kitzhafer has my thanks for signing HB 3460, I'm still troubled by his reluctance towards cannabis. In his signing letter, Kitzhafer wrote, "I understand the concerns the opponents of HB 3460 have expressed and share those concerns to a certain extent. As a medical doctor and as governor, Kitzhafer needs to be better educated on the science and medicine of cannabis as it exists today." The late Francis Young, an administrative law judge for the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency, called cannabis one of the safest therapeutic substances known to man. We've traveled a long way since 1974, when the Nixon administration buried the results of a study conducted by the National Institutes of Health showing that marijuana had positive results in fighting cancer. The study lay dormant for 25 years until its results were echoed in a study led by Dr. Manuel Guzman of Complutense University in Spain. As both an activist and a medical cannabis consumer, it appalls me that so few are outraged by such horrendous deceit by our government, a deceit foisted upon the nation not with good intent, but propelled by individual prejudice and cultural bigotry. This decades-long struggle to return legitimacy to the cannabis plant has been painted by opponents as being led by stoners looking to get high. But the opponents to prohibition are a vast and growing group, including many medical professionals who are finally grasping that, at worst, marijuana proponents were guilty of occasional hyperbole. The media medical star, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, declared in a recent CNN special that he was abandoning his position to cannabis after conducting his own research. He said, quote, "I was too dismissive of the loud chorus of legitimate patients whose symptoms improved on cannabis. I mistakenly believed the Drug Enforcement Agency listed marijuana as a Schedule I substance because of sound scientific proof. They didn't have the science to support that claim," Gupta said. "We have been terribly and systematically misled for nearly 70 years in the United States, and I apologize for my role in that. As a medically efficacious substance that has been used for thousands of years, there has never been a recorded fatal overdose from cannabis, a claim that can't be made even for water, and a claim that doctors, police, politicians, and even governors can no longer ignore. As Gupta states, the government has been lying for a very long time. The movement to correct the egregious errors of cannabis prohibition and its displacement in the Controlled Substance Act is an act of, if I may be so bold, as yet unrecognized, patriotism. Oregon's new law establishing a medical marijuana dispensary system is a sign of how far our state has come, as is the addition of post-traumatic stress disorder as an allowable condition under the Oregon medical marijuana program. Thank you, Oregon. Can we please move on to dismantling the federal prohibition juggernaut? Jim Gregg of Eugene is a member of the board of directors of the Voter Power Foundation and an organizer for Americans for Safe Access. So thanks so much for to Jim for that great
Yeah,
idea.
that was a good one. You definitely nailed it on the head there. You know, the everything that was put in there, like Governor Kitzhaber, after the bill goes into effect, you know, maybe you should go around and look at the facilities and really take into account how many people of the communities are getting aided by them.
Exactly, and by the way, Jim is a good example of what you can do. Jim is bedridden. I mean bedridden, I don't mean he has to lay down part of the day. He's in bed all the time. He has, I've forgotten, I can't remember what it is, but anyway, from the bed, he does a lot of work, and he's one of the leading activists in the area and very instrumental in everything we're doing. And so I like to say that this is a war on drugs, and if we're in a war, you think about when you have two sides in a war, the side that has the most powerful weapon is going to have the advantage. Well, I've always heard that the pen is mightier than the sword. So I say this is a drug war, and this is a time for you to pick up your weapon and the pen and pick up your weapon and fight. You can write letters to the editor like Jim did. You could write in a response to the letter, to Jim's letter to the Register Guard. A well-written letter, try to be under 200 words, 250 max, and you just might get published and get your word out there. So, excuse me, write your politicians, Congress critters. That's what it's all about. Pick up your pen, pick your pen and fight.
Stand up.
Stand up. The greener side at 1600 Oak Street is a great place to go.
1601B Oak Street.
1601, excuse me, 1601B Oak Street, and it's a great place to pick up the information, the things that we're talking about, and get cooked up with organizations that are working to improve the situation.
Yeah, we can help you get on the right path on whatever you may need.
That's right. Anything to do with medical marijuana, go down and talk to the crew at Greener Side, and the help is there. And appreciate for everything you're doing.
Heck yeah, we enjoy everything.
And hours are expanded. You're now open till 7.
Yeah, we're now open until 7 p.m. So if you get off work a little bit later than 5, you can now come on down and we'll be able to help you out.
You
and
bet.
I look forward to seeing you.
1601B Oak Street. You betcha. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Eugene, Oregon, well, I came across these hippies. They were just kicking it in the park, strumming a bass guitar like my man T-Rock. They were singing a song. I said it's high time to consider what condition my position is in now. It's high time to get on with the show. I said I don't mind. If the middle of the riddle comes a little too late now, I don't mind. You might as well give it a go. Anybody having a high time? The show's about to start. Put a little beat and under a little beat, yes. Put a little beat in your heart. I said all aboard because the bus is about to leave. I said you better get ready to go, cause we're gonna get down, Hempfest gonna get down. Do some good old rock and roll, yes, it's high time to consider what condition my position is in now. It's high time to get on with the show. I said I don't mind. If the middle of the riddle comes a little too late now, I don't mind. Might as well give it a go. And the drum, the rhythm section.